Got the characteristic turbo exhaust part. Welcome to another Classic Car Club drive-through. Today we've got the latest 8 Series offerings from BMW. Really interesting cars, and you got to talk about kind of the history of BMW and Grand Touring cars a bit to understand this. In America, Grand Tours are kind of the Don Draper of cars. Undoubtedly fit, classy, smooth, and well-tailored. Capable of great performance, but will do it in a kind of smooth, easy way. To understand the German definition of a Grand Tour, you really have to understand German roads and the way they drive. And I know it sounds a little cliche, but when you get out in the Autobahn and see what the roads are built for and what the cars that drive on it are built to do, it really makes these big German Grand Touring cars make sense. Intentional aerodynamic design, and the suspension is designed to settle in and hold the road and be stable at speed. Drive comfortably 120, 150 miles an hour on your way to work, and you need cars that can do that. Our first exposure to this was early days of the car club, or at least my first exposure. I know the London Club had all varieties of cars earlier than we did, but around 2006 we had a E24 M6, so the BMW M6 from the late 80s. Sorry if I got the E-Def designation wrong. I always lose track of the numbers, but I think it's E24. And that car was among the best cars I've ever driven at delivering great performance, but being completely smooth and comfortable on the highway and could just eat miles. At the time, we had a 2005 Bentley GT, so a brand new Bentley GT that should be the benchmark of kind of smooth, fast performance. And if I'm being honest, even with all its kind of antiquated analog controls and a manual gearbox, that M6 was smoother than the Bentley. So, with all that history, the past 8 Series, this new 8 Series replacing the current 6 Series in the BMW lineup, there's a lot to live up to as far as what BMW is going to build for a Grand Tour. Specifically today, we have an M850i xDrive Coupe, that's a mouthful, and an M8 Grand Sport Competition Coupe. The full M treatment 4-door coupe, or the Don Draper Grand Tourer with an M treatment. Both share the same basic hardware. They got a 4.4 liter twin turbo V8 and a ZF 8-speed gearbox. With the M version, you get the M treatment, a bit more power, different tuning and controls over the gearbox, and a bunch of other goodies like active differentials, more steering modes and suspension modes, and active driver aids that are not only there to help you avoid accidents, but even help you anticipate corners and shift and things like that. Both exceptionally fast, exceptionally powerful. I think the published numbers in this one is 530 horsepower. We get up over 600. I think they say 617 on the M8 competition. More power and performance than you could ever need. Both are, even the sophisticated gentleman's one does 0 to 60 in under 3.5 seconds. I'd say 3.3. Supercar territory in any normal world, but we now live in a world where cars are break in 3 seconds on 0 to 60. But to do that in a Grand Tour that you can also hang out, have a nice conversation, and smoothly cruise along the highway is just incredible. These cars are so capable now, it's almost not worth mentioning the stats. But what we really want to do is see what it's like to drive them. So we're going to hop in the driver's seat and see what it's like to drive. So while we're on the back roads, seeing that this is the ultimate Grand Tour, it's equipped with a full suite of driver aids when you are on those long drives. And I read BMW's description of it, and it's exactly the way I think those things should be used. I'm a driver. I don't want things getting in the way and interfering with the way I drive. But when I'm in a long, monotonous situation, boring highway for a long time, stop and go traffic, it's pretty handy to have something that will take over for me or just help me keep in the road. I've driven thousands of miles through Europe, sometimes 800 to 1,000 miles in one shot, and it gets tiring just driving along the highway. So, you push this button here with the lane assist in the steering, and it will do adaptive cruise control and keep you in your lane, just so if you do get worn out in a long drive, it's gonna take over. And also, you're just stuck in tunnel traffic and trying to make your way into the city. Don't want to worry about it too much, it'll take over there. You still have to keep your hands on the wheel. You still have to pay attention. You know, there's a really good display that gives you information about what the car sees, but it just takes the burden out of that kind of driving. So, you know, it's something you really want, I believe, when you have a GT car where you're planning on driving 600-700 miles and then hitting up some back roads. You hear too, I'm actually an automatic now, and it's got this really intelligent programming in the gearbox where it's anticipating when I'm coming to corners and downshifting. Again, I'm a driver, I'd rather do it myself, but having a gearbox that can do that for you, it really does change the game with automatic. For my money, well done. Like, I really love this. I think it's just a great balance of compliance and performance in a package that you can also take on a long drive and be completely comfortable. All right, we're now in the M8 competition Grand Coupe. While the basic architecture is the same, we still have the same 4.4 liter V8. I mean, I know it's not really the same. Everything in the car now has the M treatment. Probably some changes on the motor and changes in tuning. The M tuning gets us up to 617 horsepower, so I think we're 87 horsepower over the 850i. Same ZF automatic gearbox, but with M programming. They've been using this gearbox for a while now, but everybody loves it, and even though it's automatic, they've really been able to make it behave like a dual clutch manual. And in the M version, you get the familiar SMG kind of shifter where you pull it down and to the right to put it in drive, clicking over once to the left is neutral, and then the left and up is reverse. And then you have these buttons here to choose the modes within automatic or sport manual shifting, which, you know, basically it controls in manual how quick and hard the shifts are, and in automatic how far into the sport range of the transmission program you are. So in automatic, it'll hold gears longer, it will shift earlier, downshift for you earlier. Or if I want manual shifts, I want them to happen quick and hard and fast. So I go full bars on the manual, and on automatic, I want it to be smooth and easy and not be doing weird things holding gears out, so I'll put it on the lowest bars and then I'll toggle between the two. Again, gone are the days of a simple sport button, so now we have a kind of full sport suite of buttons to choose from. The M mode changes the display and the behavior of the driver aids, which is interesting. It's not just the graphics, but it also is not really getting into the actual vehicle dynamics. It changes driver aids from the kind of full suite of highway driver aids when you're in normal, and when you're in the M mode, it leaves some driver aids on there intended to help you with spirited driving. And then if you actually want to get into the driver settings in the car, press the setup button, because we have so many variables. We can't just hit a sport button anymore. You have to go in and control what you want your engine, chassis, steering, and brake settings on. And then if you were in a track mode, you could also play with the four-wheel drive system, which we haven't talked about four-wheel drive at all. You know, four-wheel drive in an M car to the M purist is sacrilege. However, you know, they've designed this rear bias four-wheel drive system that in track mode you can actually even just put it in full rear drive. And you know, BMW says the front wheels are really only engaged when necessary for traction. So you're going to be biased towards the rear. It's intended to handle like a rear-wheel drive car, but with a car with this much power and this much weight, the front wheels will kick in to help you get through corners and get traction when you need it. So you can flip through this menu. You also have preset buttons. There's just so much to talk about in this car. There's so many controls. You have an M1 and M2 that will bring you to a preset of all these settings. We're on back roads here. I'm going to go for Sport Plus on the engine, Comfort on the chassis, Sport steering, Sport brake. It's actually a brake-by-wire system, so the difference on the Sport brake and the Comfort brake is the responsiveness of the brakes to your inputs. Pretty wild that you're actually not really connected. When I kick into drive, it's going to default to drive, and if I push it again to the left or to the right, there we go. Now it's going to go to manual. and I can control the paddles. You can always jump in with the paddles, but if you don't actually toggle over to manual, it's gonna stay. It'll jump back in and shift for you eventually. So reminiscent of that 850, but everything is just so much more full on. Definitely intimidating amount of power, you know. Which, you know, when you're going for like a supercar experience, it should kind of scare you. It's not something to take lightly. You've got 617 horsepower under your right foot. You shouldn't unleash that without realizing you're doing it, you know. Visceral feelings in the M8 are just all turned up a bit. You know, everything that the M850 does to smooth it out and make it a Grand Tour is kind of stripped away by the hardcore M aspects, and reminds you the kind of business at hand driving a serious sports car. Exactly what you'd expect out of a BMW M. It's a pretty massive Grand Tour, you know. This is a real four-door. It's got 5 seat belts, but you know, that middle seat's kind of a jumper in the back, but you could definitely put 4 adults in this thing and, you know, cover a couple thousand miles across country and enjoy it. That said, as much as it is super hardcore, on this soft suspension mode, suspension's doing its job to suck up the bumps, get a little bit of roll. I'm gonna try some sport mode and see how that feels now. Just a wall of power. I mean, these twin turbo BMW V8s just have so much torque down low. I think it's something like 1600 or 1800 RPM where the max torque starts. So while you've got 8 speeds and all this active transmission and drivetrain controls, you can really just about be in any gear and put your foot down and things gonna take off. It's just got so much torque. This also, I should mention, has the M Active diff, carbon ceramic brakes, you know, all things previously reserved for supercars now appearing in kind of ultimate sports sedans. Really gives you that ability to do what Grand Tours are made for, you know, put in comfort, efficient, quiet, you know, take down 400 miles on the highway without blinking, and then pull off on some back roads or even a track, and have a car that you can still really enjoy driving. I'm impressed. It's a toss-up. I think it'd probably depend on my audience and the roads I'm hitting, but if you have the occasion to get some really serious roads, or you want that full-on, you know, serious sports car effect in a Grand Tour, grab the M8. If you're looking for a bit more comfort but still want to enjoy the country roads, that M850 is going to do the job really well. Great choices all around, especially these days if you want to just get out of where you are, go to a destination far away and get a change of scenery. All these BMWs are a great way to do it.